10 years from now, right? If you continue the same path, what are those relationships really going to look like? And my guess is most people listening to this, that is not an answer that they want to see, right? That's not a reality that they want to face. And it takes courage to make that change. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your co-host, Doug Holt, and here with the powerful man himself, Tim Matthews. Tim, how you doing, man?
Absolutely phenomenal.
Why is that?
Well, as you know, Doug, we've just come off the back of the Alpha Reset in Wales, and words don't even come close to what we experienced today. The results speak for themselves, but then this week, when everything's just going really well and it feels effortless. I know that kind of sounds like a cliche, but I'm just living what we teach, and it feels easy. Sure, there's a few bumps in the road every now and then, but again, using the tools that we teach, I'm able to navigate past them very easily and quickly, so that I can continue on this upward spiral. So, it's just great to be able to watch life unfold in this way.
It's amazing, man. And you definitely are an example. Not that either of us are perfect, but, we do the best we can. What was interesting is today I was talking about the Alpha Reset, and it's almost impossible to describe that all of these men, this is the topic I want to talk about today, and I'll bring it up in a second, but all of these men show up, right? And they show up big, but they are not the same guys that leave. I mean, not even close. And it is miraculous to see the absolute change that these men make, and following up with them are continuing to make day after day after day. It really warms my heart.
One of the jokes I loved whilst we were in Wales, and for those of you that are listening that don't know much about Wales, so Wales is on the western tip, if you will, of England, and next to it is Ireland. And as you can imagine, it doesn't get a great deal of sunshine. But one of the ongoing jokes that was getting shared was how one of the guys there got a suntan whilst in a house in Wales. And it's just purely because, as these guys open up and really release and reclaim, they change not only emotionally, but physically too. And we can get into why that is later in the episode. But yeah, it was just an absolute blessing and an honor to be part of it for one, and to then be able to continue working with these guys afterwards to really solidify a lot of these changes.
Yeah, shout out to David. We won't say his last name, but he showed up in such a major way. I think it was day 3 of the immersion. That guy just shed some serious stuff, and he emerged a totally different guy. He looked younger. He had color in him. His energy was so different. He saw where, he saw his blind spots, I think, for the first time. Absolutely amazing. But, I'm not going to keep bragging about the Alpha Reset, although, if anybody's listening and you have any questions about it, you can certainly reach out to us. It is the most transformational experience that I have ever seen in my 20 plus years of personal and business development. Is unreal. But Tim, what I want to talk about today is, what is courage? And seeing these men show up and come time and time again, define it. What do you see as courage in today's modern society?
What is courage in modern society? Wow. Courage for me in modern society is being able to be real, real with yourself first and foremost. In my opinion, Doug, and we see this a lot with the men that we work with, part of the reason why they're wearing a mask, part of the way in which they've developed the mask is the fact that they've felt like they've had to fit into everybody else's box. And they've gone into business, and it's kind of been by default, either from a desire or a need to prove themselves unknowingly, or they've been handed down a family business. We know some guys like that. Or they've just gone into it out of just feeling like, well, I don't really know what else to do. For the most part, it's not been a real conscious decision, if you will, for the men that we work with anyway. And I know that I struggled with this when I first went into business, before I was actually able to find the courage inside of me and get real with myself as to what void I was trying to fill, then actually come out of the closet, if you will. I came out of the closet and really let everybody see the real me, the me that I was hiding, The me that wanted to show up in order to prove myself to everybody else, in order to prove myself to my father, in order to prove myself to women, in order to prove myself to other men. And it took courage for me to be able to actually surrender to that, drop the mask and be vulnerable, and as a result of that, I did go through a tough time, for about 6 to 12 months. It was tough in the sense of my external world. From the outside, a lot of people might have thought that my life was crumbling, if you will, because I was kind of tearing everything down. But on the inside, I'd never at that time in my life felt as peaceful as I did then. And it all came from having the courage to just be real and do me.
That's really profound. And coming out of the closet means a lot of things these days, but what you're talking about is really showing yourself to the world rather than hiding in the shadows, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because 28 years of my life, 29 years of my life, that's exactly what I did. And I never used to understand why my life was a pattern of stress, struggle, and sacrifice. More to the point, to be honest, I actually looked for that because I believed back then that, perseverance, that was one of the things that really made a man. That was one of the things that was really admirable and successful in a man, his ability to withstand pain. And as a result, I wore that badge of honor with pride for a long, long time. A long, long time. You and I have spoken about on previous shows, put me up against any man and I'll out hustle them. I'm the hardest worker. That whole analogy. And been able to actually let go of all of that and rediscover myself first and foremost for the first time in my life. It really did take a lot of courage, and it was do you know what? It wasn't received like I was coming out of the closet with homosexuality. We see it a lot, well, I have anyway, in the UK when we hear stories rather of homosexual guys. When they come out of the closet, some of the friends turn their back on them, the families don't understand. They can be greeted with quite a lot of animosity and quite a lot of fear. It's really interesting because when I came out of the closet and chose to do me and take hold of my courage, I was greeted in a similar way. Some of my friends thought I was starting a cult. I was trying to brainwash people. They was telling me that, I can't speak things like that. I can't, share those kind of stories. Who do you think you are? My family was saying things to me. Literally, it was crazy looking back. But also at the same time, it was freedom, complete freedom, because there were no skeletons in the closet. I was taking the mask off. And it was one of the most empowering chapters of my life.
Wow. That is so profound. And, to dovetail on that, when I think back about courage, and I was actually doing it this morning as I was reflecting on the Alpha Reset from Wales, and I was thinking about the men who showed up, right? Now, first, it takes courage to me just to raise your hand and say, hey, I know there's something better out there, but maybe I could use a little help with it. That takes a lot of courage. But then to face your fears, right? Those demons, the parts inside of us that we don't talk about to others. I call it those things in your head that you're thinking about at 2 a.m. when you can't fall back asleep. Those conversations and to see those guys, or anybody for that matter, but these men in particular, to be exposed and be vulnerable like you're talking about. But that is still just one layer, right? That's the layer that, they kind of know about, but they're hiding. But I think courage to take it another level, and I'll go back and share my story. I'm happy to. But another level is there are 3 to 20 layers deeper than that most of us have hidden so deeply that we just don't even know exist anymore. And these guys in particular, they not only stepped up and stepped into it, obviously with our help as coaches and really pushing them and the help of the other men, but they were courageous enough to not only to step in, but what we call step to the line each and every time. And that just took tremendous amounts of courage. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? As you were saying that, Doug, I was thinking about David in particular and some of the other guys as he was stood up there. And we were taking him through one of the exercises, and it was the unknown. Oh, I'm literally getting goosebumps as I think about it. It was for him afterwards when he actually was looking back on the experience. One of the things that he was talking about was he didn't know what was going to happen. And for him, he was so used to controlling everything in his life. He was so used to controlling the outcomes and controlling the people and controlling his emotions. And as a result, as you can imagine, when you try and control everything, there's no real flexibility or spontaneity in your life. So where is the room for the unknown? There isn't any really. And for him, seeing him be up there and actually surrender into the unknown, yeah, we talk about 2 to 20 layers beneath that first layer of raising your hand. That really took a lot of courage. It's almost like throwing yourself off a building and, finding your wings on the way down and just trusting that, you know what, this feels right. I can no longer deny this desire that I'm feeling inside, and I'm going for it. I'm jumping. Not knowing how it's going to turn out, not knowing how you're going to make it work, but just knowing that it will. That is, for me, that's what I witnessed in David and a lot of the other guys as well. And it was just phenomenal.
Hey guys, I had to interrupt this show because I want to talk to you about a case study we put together. It's only 11 minutes, and what we do is we go over and show you how almost 300 men have taken control of their life, have already 4x'd their business revenue, and are having more connected and intimate sex with their partner using the activation method. Now, they're doing all of this without burning down their relationships and without suffering and sacrificing for their health. We want you to have this too, so go over to thepowerfulman.com/11, the number 11, and get this right now. It's only 11 minutes, and it's going to show you exactly how these men have done it. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Going back to the topic, what is courage in a modern society? Well, I know in, my 20s, I thought I knew what it was too. And, my story, entrepreneur now, running 6 companies, traveling around the world with my family, been scuba diving with sharks, without cages many times, have skydived, have, pet king cobra, on the head, traveling through Nepal. And I've done all these things that have really set up my fears. Like I'm afraid of heights. So I constantly am doing things to challenge that fear. And, taking martial arts, making sure I can not only, hunt and provide for my family and business and provide for those around me, but protect them, right? Physically, weight training and doing all these things, being an athlete. I thought that's what courage was. That's what it was to be a real powerful man, was to have all these attributes, right? To be strong, dominant, be an alpha, so to speak. And, that's what courage really is. But what courage was, or I think really courage is, I should say, is taking it a level deeper, exposing your fears, your vulnerabilities, to actually letting somebody in. So my guess is a lot of the men listening to this, and maybe even just one, hopefully will hear what I'm saying and maybe resonate with it. I was scared to let people know who the real me was. Back then I didn't think of it that way, but now that I look back in retrospect after doing decades of work with, other people and myself, I was really scared to let people in more than an inch deep. And the reason was I was scared that they would hurt me. They would take advantage of me. They would hurt me, manipulate me, cheat me, steal from me, etc. And I would provide examples of how this would happen in my life. And it did. But I was really scared to show the true me, to really connect, look another man or even woman in the eyes, let them into my soul to see the real vulnerable me. Everybody, a lot of people listening to this who know me, especially back then, would think, yeah, of course I knew Doug. But the truth is they didn't, right? They only knew as far as I would let them in. And I call that my representative. And when I look at these guys, I did decades of work, Tim, and I know you have too. These guys took the fast track. Like that was total immersion. Like talk about going from not knowing how to swim to being thrown into the middle of the ocean. I think you described at one point skydive, or somebody Liam described it as skydiving without a parachute into the middle of the deep sea. That's what it was like. It's such a transformational experience. And that, to me, is modern day true courage. There's no dragons to slay. The dragons to slay and the kingdoms to conquer are within us. And to be a powerful man, to me, it is stepping into that unknown, into that fear, into those dark recesses that we don't even know exist, but that are really the primary drivers to our day-to-day decisions, whether it be in business, with our family, with our children, and those connections, right? And these men had the courage not only to do that, but look at some deep things in their lives, how they were connecting with their partners, right? How they were connecting with their children. And said a better way, how they were not showing up for the partners and how they were not showing up for their children. And this is not to be negative on them at all, but most of them had turned to business, which a lot of us do, or turn to being upset at their partners or their kids. And really what it was is they were upset at themselves. And when we asked them what they really wanted, well, they wanted deep and meaningful relationships with these people. So I'm going to ask you as a listener, someone who's listening to this, if you continue in the key relationships in your life, maybe pick your top 3, right? If you're married, that's probably going to be your partner. You may even be 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door. I've been there too. And maybe it's your children, right? My question to you is, if you continue the path that you're on today, not the dream path or where you were, but how you were relating to them today, 10 years from now, right? If you continue the same path, what are those relationships really going to look like? And my guess is most people listening to this, that is not an answer that they want to see, right? That's not a reality that they want to face. And it takes courage to make that change.
Wow. One of the things that was coming up for me then as you were talking, when these guys were stood up there, the first thing that came to their mind as we were inviting them to really express and reclaim their power, I don't want to give away too much about the actual exercise, but all of them, literally all of them started off with this show of bravado, didn't they? And this isn't anything against them. We've spoken to them about this, and they'll laugh about this now because now they've found their true courage. But before, what they thought was courage was actually bravado. They were stood there wanting to, be the loudest, look the tallest, be the strongest. It's almost like the one that could shout the loudest was the one that had the most courage. The one that could be the most forceful was the one that had the most courage. But coming out of it, what they realized is it was the one that was the most peaceful that had the most courage. The one that was able to be with themselves and actually let people in, like you said, Doug, that had the most courage. Because isn't that what we're here for as well? Like you said, deep, meaningful connection with other human beings. We all crave it. We all crave it. I know I do. What's the point in growing a business if you don't have anyone to enjoy it with, whether it's your family or even your clients or whatever, because you're forever keeping people at arm's length because they only ever meet your representative. So, yeah, it's powerful when as these guys really embrace that peaceful nature within, because that's their courage.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, right? And a lot of these guys, day one, I always joke the Alpha Reset, day one's my least favorite day. And not because I don't like it, it's just my least favorite day because you meet the representative and you look at that man, you go, there's so much more, man, dude. Just open up. Because we think of, and a lot of these guys start off with this kind of bravado, like I'm a warrior, and we'll talk about what a warrior is, right? We talk about it. Well, great. Well, what are warriors used for? To fight. That's it. They're expendable, right? There's so much more depth to these men. It's not about being a warrior. It's a joke. But really, when we look at these guys, what's courageous? Is it courageous to be domineering? Is it courageous to be able to beat another person up, to captivate the room and dominate it? No, that's bullshit. That's teenage courage, right? It's courageous to be vulnerable and to understand that there's a possibility that you could get hurt, yet you step up anyway. That's friggin' courage, man. To step into that possibility that you might get hurt, yet you do it anyway, whew, blows my mind just even thinking about it. And the truth is they're not going to get hurt. But, you have that in the back, the recess of our minds. It's just human nature. But yet they stepped up anyway and let everybody else in, including us. And wow, the wisdom, the calmness, as you said, the peacefulness that you see with it when you look at these men's eyes and their energy, second to none. That is courageous and that is true power.
Yeah. And as you were sharing there about, afraid of getting hurt, for none of these guys and for any of the guys that we've worked with, Doug, it's never been the fear of physical harm. These guys, they've either done martial arts, they've been in the gym, they've been athletes. Physical harm is something that they're very familiar with. But the ability for these men to step to the line, knowing that they may get hurt emotionally, that's when they really start to let people into their lives. The people that are craving their attention, and vice versa, they're also craving the attention from that person too. So to see these men open up and to be in their presence, to experience their peacefulness, was a joy to be around. I totally hear what you're saying on day one. And it's funny to watch you, Doug, as you try and remain there and, you try and pretend that you're not confronted by the representative and you want to meet them where they're at. I get it. It's tough. It's a tough day because you see something deeper. You know the truth for these men. We just do, because we've worked with hundreds of men by this point. There's a pattern. There's a pattern that always is followed. But then to be with them in the end of day 3 at that dinner where everyone's laughing and joking and just being real men, loving one another, loving themselves, loving on one another, supporting one another. As we did the debrief afterwards, they all were sharing about the brothers they now have. The deep bonds they have with other men. And in my opinion, one of the amazing things about the Alpha Reset is the unconditional love that these men experience, firstly for themselves and then for one another, that directly fuels their courage.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can see, people that I've talked to about this, and you talk about, it's courage to step into your fears. And, you got to understand, one of these guys you mentioned is a Krav Maga instructor. He's like 6'3". Like he can go into a room and pretty much clear it out with physical prowess, right? But the truth was he was sitting in the back of his, not only life, but he had a story that I just sit in the back and observe and watch. The truth was he was scared. He was scared to let people in. And so he made up a story that I don't matter and I'll sit in the back of the room and let everybody else take their turn. That guy is now stepping up with such power and courage and peacefulness, as you said, and he's stepping up and taking his turn. The sky is the limit. So these aren't men that are broken, so to speak. These aren't men that, aren't strong in a traditional sense. No, these are men who are extra strong in the fact that they step up each and every time, or stepped up this time anyway, and will be able to unpeel back those layers of these roadblocks that they didn't know existed. Tim, we're coming to an end here, and what I want to do is leave the guys, and maybe we get a lot of women that listen to this as well who are either looking for a powerful man, but really they want their partners, their husbands or partners, to step up. Let's give them at least one thing or maybe two that they can do right now to step into their courage or identify where maybe they're leaking in this area.
Yeah, so something really simple that is also very profound when you create the space for it is asking your loved ones, your wife, or even your friends, now, what is it like to be in a relationship with me? And if you can ask your wife, the way in which I suggest you do this is you shift up the environment. Don't do it at home when you sat in front of the TV, then turn to her and say, hey, what's it like to be in a relationship with me? Chances are you're not going to get real feedback. Take her somewhere, take her on a date, and, frame it in the way that, hey, you know what? I'll use Amelia, my partner. Hey, Amelia, I've been thinking lately, and I really would love to be a better husband for you. You mean a lot to me. I love you, and I want to be the best I can. So I'd really like to know, what is it like to be in a relationship with me? And just be there and receive it. And ask your wife to be as honest and transparent as possible, because that way you can improve. Ask your kids, how can I be a better father? Ask your dad or your mother, how can I be a better son? And again, frame the context of this and do it in a different environment to what they're used to. Because for the most part, whenever the men do this, they get some really, really surprising feedback that starts to open up a conversation and new possibilities, which then you'll have the option to call on your own courage and take action on it to create something new.
What a powerful exercise. And I'm going to add to that to the guys listening to this, because, if you've been a jerk, let's just call it what it is, or a dick, I recommend asking them just to write it down and letting them know it's safe. It's a safe place. Because if you haven't been showing up loving as you can, and we know the truth, if you have or not, as men, we just know. And I certainly know I wasn't at a time in my life. Not that I was mean or anything, but I wasn't showing up as fully as I could, maybe a little bit more curt than I needed to be. Have them write it down and let them know it's a safe place, and come from a loving place when you make that request. Otherwise, they're going to be scared to share the true answers. And so when you get these answers, just realize that you're getting a really, no matter how much it hurts, whatever they say, it's a really buffered, conservative answer you're getting. And the truth is probably a lot deeper here. And it's really, really amazing. So, Tim, I want to end with anybody listening to this that resonates with any part of this. If you have the courage to step up and raise your hand, reach out to somebody. Obviously it's what we do, but even if it's not with us, do something to do that deep work. The world needs the real you and not just your representative. Life is way too short to be playing small. So we'd love to talk to you about the Alpha Reset or the activation method or some of the other advanced programs that we have. Of course, you have to go through the Alpha Reset to get to any of the others. It's our baseline program as much as we talk about it. But raise your hand, step up, have the courage to make the change.
Yeah, be the courage. It's already within you. It's there. And if I'm completely honest, which I always am, I really don't feel like you'd be listening to this podcast if there wasn't something that was missing in your life. You just wouldn't. And with that being said, I would love for you to be able to call on the courage within you that's already there. And like Doug said, ask for help, whether it's with us, whether it's with friends, family, whatever. I don't really care. Sure, I'd love to work with you. We'd love to work with you. But the most important thing here is that you just call on that courage and raise your hand, because that will open the floodgates to some amazing possibilities.
Yeah, guys, we're on a movement here. The number one cause of death for men, I believe it's 35 to 55, and I'm sure I'm getting these numbers a little bit wrong, but so excuse me here, is suicide. It's not talked about, and it's because us as men haven't had a voice to step into. It's always been this bravado, that we're taught to do. So we're here for you, regardless of what it is that you decide to do and move forward. Choose to move forward with something else. Tim, as always, thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to talking to you on the next one.
Likewise.